Okay, so in your Schoology folder, look at the images for the Magic 8 Ball app. You're free to use any of these. They're copyright royalty-free images. You could also find or create your own app as well. So scroll down to the bottom here, click on an image. If you like it, go ahead and click on download image. Otherwise, you can use these little scroll arrows to scroll through and look at each of the options. Hopefully we're not all going to pick the same one. So take a gander at those, click on download image when you're ready, and then you can close it up by clicking on the X. That will send the image off to your download folder when you click on download image, and then you'll have an image there ready to use. All right, then we're going to open up Xcode. So if you'll go ahead and go to your applications folder and open up Xcode, we are going to create a new Xcode project. So go ahead and click over here on create a new Xcode project. And again, if I'm going too quickly, please throw something in the chat to let me know that you have a question or you'd like for me to slow down. All right. We need this to say iOS up here at the top in terms of platform. So if you've changed anything there, make sure that you're on iOS. And we want to select app. Then we're going to click on next. And let's call our app Magic 8 Ball. And I will type that with correct letters. All right, we do want to make sure that this says storyboard here, and we're going to leave this bottom one at Swift. Once we have our name for our app and we see storyboard and Swift, we can go ahead and click on next. And let's put this in our documents folder, in our Xcode projects folder where we've been keeping everything else, just to make sure that things are easy to find so that we can get back to this quickly if we need to wrap it up. All right. Now what we're going to do is we are going to go to our main storyboard here first, and we're going to lay out what we want our app to look like. All right, so and again, just a quick call out to some of the things here in Xcode. A good review, since we haven't created an app for a couple weeks now. I'm in our navigator panel over here on the right side, and I'm going to main storyboard. This area out here in the middle is called the interface builder, where we can lay out all of our design for our app. And then we've got our inspector panels over here on the right side, which again rely on what we've clicked on at that point in time to determine what's going to be shown over there. All right, so in our app, I'm just going to stretch this out just a little bit here. First thing that we need to make sure that we have is, let's match up our device that we're going to build on with our simulator app. So I'm going to go down here to the bottom. I'm going to change this from an iPhone 13 Pro, and I'm just going to pick the iPhone 14 Pro. And that should match up with my simulator device, which I see up here at the top. So now I have iPhone 14 Pro to make sure that when I run this, I'm going to see the same thing that I'm seeing here in Interface Builder as I'm building things. Let's go ahead and start designing what we want our app to look like. Let's start out with a title for our app up here at the top of our screen. So let's open up our object library by clicking on the plus up here in the top menu bar to get that object library open. And then let's find a label. Now, if you're not seeing label at the top of your object library, just go ahead and start typing label into the library. And then grab that label and drag it over on top of your device screen. Make sure that you're dragging it onto the device screen and not dropping it outside of the device in the interface builder area. Once you see these blue dotted lines popping up, you'll know that it's centered. So let's put it somewhere about right here and then let go of it. Next, let's add an image view to hold our image. So again, let's open up the object library by clicking on the plus sign up here in the top menu bar. And now let's type image view. Once we start typing image, that will probably pop up for you. So go ahead and just grab the image view and drag it over out of the library onto your device screen here in the interface builder. Let's get those blue dotted lines to pop up so that we know that it's centered, and let's drop it somewhere about right here. Let's make this a little bit larger, so go ahead and grab on the handles on the left side and drag those out until you see the blue dotted lines popping up, letting you know where the edge of the safe area is, the edge of the area that will be visible on a device screen. Then go ahead and do the same thing with the right side. Just grab on those handles and drag out till you see that safe area dotted line popping up. And then let's make this a little bit more squarish. So grab the bottom and go ahead and drag out the bottom until it looks something like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. Now, if you did need this image view to be more specific, more of a perfect square, what you can do while this is selected with the handles is go over here to your inspector and click on the size inspector here, this little inspector icon that has a little triangle. Here you can see the exact size of the object that you've got selected on your device screen. So if we really wanted this to be more squarish, we could adjust the width and the height to be a little bit more square. I think that's pretty good, so we'll just leave it at that. I'm going to go back here to the label, and I'm just going to click back on that and then click on the attributes inspector with these three sliders over here on the side. And what I want to do here is I want to kind of change the text here. So I could double click here on label, or I can type over here on the side in the attributes inspector where it says label. And I'm gonna give this a title here. So I will type Magic 8-Ball. And that's gonna show up at the top of our app interface there. And I may need to adjust it a little bit. I'm gonna make this bigger, so I'm just gonna go ahead and drag out my handles a little bit on this box and maybe drag it a little bit taller as well. Adjust the height there. All right, now I want to adjust the font inside of here. So I'm going to go back over here to the attributes inspector, and first let's center align this. So click on the insert alignment here, make sure that's centered. Then let's make this bigger so it's easier to read. So under font, where it says System 17, let's click on this little T right here. And let's change this from System font, kind of that generic, to, let's go with Custom. So I'm just scrolling up to Custom, and then I'm going to change the style to bold. And for the font name, I'm going to choose, I'm going to go with Avenir next. You can feel free to go with whichever font you'd like to. And then let's bump up the size of this font to something like, again, it might depend on the font that you chose, but something like 35, 36, so that it's nice and big, easy to read on our screen right there. All right, give you a couple seconds to do that. So we adjusted the center alignment, and then we clicked on the T here in font to be able to get from System font to Custom fonts. Choose the font we want, make it bold, and then adjust the size to be something like 35 or 36 so that it's easy to read on the screen. All right, so we've got a nice title on our screen. We've got our image view. We need a button to be able to click as we're asking our questions. So let's go back to the object library. And let's find a button. I can see button right here, but if you want to type in button if you're not seeing it, that will bring up the buttons to the top of the list. And let's go with one of these plain buttons, because then we'll do some formatting of our own. All right, and again, we're going to drag it out just a little bit below our image view. We're going to look for that centered blue dotted line to let us know that we've got things centered there. And then while it's selected with the handles, we're going to go over and do a little bit of formatting for our button here. So if we look over in the Attributes Inspector on the right side, under Title, it says it's a plain style button, right? We're going to change button here. Again, we could double click it out here on the button, but I'm going to change mine over here in the inspector. And let's make our button say something like, answer my question. Something similar to answer my question. All right, and I'm going to hit return there so it updates the button. We need to add another label so that we can get our answer for our question. So let's go back up to the object library up here at the top. And let's grab a label. And again, since we've used it recently, it's here at the top. I'm going to grab label, drag it over here at the bottom of our device. And again, let's make this wider. So drag that toward the left edge, and then drag the right side over toward the right side. And then let's adjust the height by dragging the top and the bottom around a little bit here. And again, we're getting our kind of our centered dotted blue line, and we're also getting these safe area lines as we drag close to the edges to let us know that this would still be visible within the view that we have. All right. Okay. Now let's either double click in the label here or over in our Attributes Inspector on the right side up here at the top where it says label. Let's type in this is where your answer will be. And I'll put an exclamation mark there at the end. This is where your answer will be. All right, and again, let's make this larger so that we can read this. So I'm going to adjust the font size and bump that up to, I don't know, I kind of like something between 30 and 35. And now you'll notice what's happening is our font is so big that I'm going to leave it at 35. It's kind of falling off the edge beyond our view, right? So we can't see that. So let's adjust that here with this lines control. I don't think we've talked about this yet. And so right above that, let's set the alignment to be centered. And then this lines control right here right now says 1, so it's a single line of text. Let's change that to a 0, and this actually doesn't mean that that there are no lines of text. It means that this label is going to expand to be as big as it needs to be in terms of height to accommodate however many lines of text that we have. So maybe not entirely straightforward in terms of how that works, but if you're setting this lines control to 0 in the inspector, it will allow the label to grow and expand to accommodate the amount of text that you have rather than being limited to just one line. So maybe think of 0 as not having a limit in terms of the number of lines that we're assigning. All right. I'm going to come back here to this button and click on that one more time. And I'm going to scroll down in the inspector to where it says background. And right now that has the default backslash there, which means this button is formatted not to have a background color. So let's click on that and let's choose a background color. So I'm gonna go with this really bright red. And I will just adjust the height slightly on that. So we've got the name of our app, we've got an image view that's going to hold an image, we've got our button that we're going to click on to answer our question, and we've got a label that is going to grab the text of the label as we're adding to it. Let's go over then in our navigator panel on the left side, and let's click on assets to get to our assets catalog. And now we're gonna go over to our downloads folder, and we're gonna grab our image that we downloaded. So whichever one that you chose. And I'm going to grab this 8-ball image and drag it into this white area here and let go of that. All right, so that's going to bring in some images that we can use in our app. So I'll let you do that. Just drag your image over. Technically, if you're dragging it on top of this gray area, it's still going to show up here in the white area, and it will show up as a 1x image, indicating kind of the resolution. 1x is fine since we're probably not uploading this app to the App Store. Most phones that we would be maybe creating an app for be a little bit safer these days to have a 2x resolution icon, but again, since we're not uploading these to the App Store yet at this point, a 1x resolution image is just fine for our app as we're going. All right, let's go ahead and go back to our main storyboard then, and let's click on our image view out here in the storyboard in our interface builder so that it's selected. And now up here at the top where it says image, if we click on that, we should now have the name of an image, and they all have slightly different images depending upon which one that you chose. So go ahead and tap on that to select it, and it will put your image into the view here so that you can see how it looks. Now again, we did adjust our image view to be kind of squarish in terms of dragging it. You may have even used the size inspector to make it a little bit more perfect in terms of a square. If your image is looking squished, remember we can control that content view here. Aspect fit is probably giving you the best appearance, but you could also explore what does scale to fit look like. That looks like really stretched, right? So not so good. Aspect fill will use the amount of space to the best of its ability, but you can see here that it cuts off a little bit of it. So again, aspect fit will do the best job of fitting the entire image in the given space to kind of fill it up, but not maybe cut off anything in it. All right, so try those with your particular image, see what looks best, do whatever adjustments you need to so that it looks good and does not look stretched. And once you've done that, you can click on the play button over here to build and run your app. And your simulator should be coming up. It's always a little slow the first time running. All right, awesome, there it is. So hopefully yours is running. So it looks good. I can see the name of my app on the screen. I've got my image. I have my answer button. I can see where my answer is going to be. I've got my button here, which isn't doing anything yet at this point. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop my simulator. So we're going to go back over here to the navigator panel, and we're going to click on this first folder here. Don't worry about any of these cautions. Again, unless we're getting a red error message, we don't really need to worry about the yellow cautions or warnings. In this case, just referring to some of our formatting in terms of how we've laid out our design here. All right. So let's click on this first folder to go to the project navigator. And now we're going to go to view controller. And that should bring us back to our familiar looking code area. If you want, you can go ahead and close your inspector to give yourself a little bit more screen real estate so that you can see things a little bit better here on your screen. All right, and that could be really important so that we have enough room because we're going to connect up things in our storyboard to our code at this point in time. All right, so a couple different ways we can do this. We're in the view controller. We could actually stay here in the storyboard, and we can click over here on our assistant editor options and open up that assistant editor to be able to see the view controller. That's one way of getting there. Sometimes I know this gives people some troubles and it doesn't open correctly. If that's happening, you can click up here in kind of this breadcrumb trail, and you can adjust what you're looking at here to be able to get to the view controller. Let's go ahead and get our items in our storyboard connected. Hopefully this seems kind of familiar since we have done this a few times with our different apps that we built. So first of all, let's start out by connecting our answer label down here at the bottom. So let's go ahead and click on this so that it's selected, so that it's showing the handles around the outside. We're going to hold down our control key, and we are going to drag this over, and we're going to drag it right here to about line 11, right below our where it's saying class view controller. And once we see that blue line kind of stretching out to that space, we can go ahead and release it there. So again, you're just holding down the control key, while using your trackpad to drag over from the answer label over to this space that we have below class view controller. This is going to create our IB outlet. Again, a little review. IB stands for Interface Builder because we're connecting these things in the Interface Builder with our code, and this is an outlet. So we'll be able to kind of pass information back from our code to this space in our app. All right. And we're going to give this a name. And again, we're writing in lowercase, camel case. And so let's call this message label. We'll try to make this as clear as possible. So this is a label, and it's where we're going to see our messages pop up. So message label, no spaces, capitalize the L in there. It's a UI label. Once we have that all correct, we can go ahead and click on the connect button. And that's going to add in this IB outlet function right here in our code. Again, we can give ourselves some more space in here. So I could go in here and put a little bit of space, at least one blank line in between these items so it's easier to read. And let's also add in some comments here as we're going to make sure that, again, we're clear on what we're doing. If we need to come back to this to wrap things up, and also if we're sharing this code. So let's add a blank line, and then on line 12, let's do a comment by having 2 backslashes. And again, we're using the backslashes next to the shift key on your laptop, and this code is connecting the answer label to our code. Or to code. I'm going to add just a second comment here as well. This is where messages will appear. Okay, so right now we have this text to kind of help us know where it's going to appear on our screen. This is where your answer will be. We probably don't want to see that when we're actually running the app. And so if we look over here in our code, we see this function here called viewDidLoad, which happens when we first start our app up. And this function loads in whatever's in the view. So in this case, it's going to load in our title label, our image, our button, and this label for our messages as well. But if we don't want this text to appear in the message label, we can actually come inside of the curly braces here in this function. So let's go into line 18 and let's add another line there, and here let's actually add 2 lines, and let's add a comment to clear message label text out. All right, and then let's put some code in that is going to get rid of that. All right, so let's call our function message label. And again, if you're starting to type that, Xcode's going to autocomplete for you. You can hit return when you see message label. And we're going to use dot notation to find the message or the text. So type a period, and then you can see all the different sorts of properties and behaviors that can be assigned to this label. And we want to clear out the text, so go ahead and hit return with text selected. And so we're going to be accessing the text that is stored in this message label. And let's put a space and the equal sign, and we're going to assign an empty string. So just type 2 quotation marks. All right, so when this function viewDidLoad runs, it's going to load everything on the screen or everything in the view, and it's going to clear out this text in our answer label. The label will still be there, we just won't see the text at that point in time. All right, let's go ahead and click on the play button to run that code so that you can see that it will clear that out. All right, so there's the simulator. Hopefully it started up more quickly for you since we didn't quit it. And you can see now that the text in my answer label is not there. I've got a blank space down there waiting for my answer. All right, my answer my question button still isn't doing anything at this point. So let's get that connected up next. So I'm gonna stop my simulator again or pause it up here, and let's put in some code and get our button connected first of all. So I'm going to give myself a little bit more space down here below line, what's now my line 23 at the end of this curly brace. So give yourself another blank line there to make it easier for you to drag things in. Over here in the interface builder on the left side, I'm going to click on the answer button so that it is selected with the handles around the edge. I'm going to hold down the control button on my keyboard, and with my trackpad I'm going to drag from answer my question into this area below the viewDidLoad function. So after that curly brace, and I'm going to let go of my trackpad when I see that blue line extending over there. So let's go ahead and name this. And again, let's try to be really clear with our name. So let's call this question button pressed, since that's what's happening. Question button pressed. And I'm just checking to make sure that I don't have any typos in there. Again, lowercase camel case, no spaces. We're going to change this type from any. This is a UI button that we're connecting, so let's select that up so that we can see it in our code. And we do want to leave this as touch up inside, and then we'll click on connect once we've got that all selected. All right, that is going to insert our function here into our code. And again, let's throw in a comment here. Always a good idea to give ourselves some comments to remind ourselves what we're doing. So I'm just going to add a blank line and add in a couple backslashes. And here we are connecting. Answer my question button to code. I'm going to go ahead and close up the assistant editor here by clicking this little X over on the right side, and then I'm going to go to the navigator panel over here on the left side to the view controller. All right, that's going to let me see my code that I have so far. And let's get a quick start on our array that we're going to add in for our questions. So below where we have our IB outlet function here on line 14 for myself, I'm going to click in there and add a blank line or two. And again, let's put a comment in there. And let's put a comment in that array of possible answers, something like that.